Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this regular meeting of Council to order. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We're scheduled to proceed in camera, so I'd ask for the appropriate motion to proceed in camera. Moved Councillor Bonner, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Tony.
Difficult to
How's it
see
going?
me. Probably bright light behind me, right?
Yep. All right. So I'm
Okay.
going to put you in the waiting room and we're going to be good to go.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the July 26th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular meeting of Council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter, Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272, and Ministerial Order number M192 governing open meetings. As the province has moved into Phase 3 of the reopening plan, question period has now been reinstated for those in attendance for agenda items only. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, would you please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet, and at the start of question period I will call up those who have signed up to the podium to address Council. And the first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items. Ms. Gurry, and we do have a number tonight.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The first item is adding of delegation Jovan Stefani from the Rise Bridge Project to agenda item 11B. Agenda item 12D, Official Community Plan Amendment, OCP 100 for 456 Milton Street and OCP 101 for 120 Needham Street, 514 and 540 Halliburton Street, and 535 and 575 Nickel Street. We're adding delegations from Carol and Rick Evans, the Paradox Company, Inc. Agenda item 12E, Development Variance Permit Application number DVP 420 at 4176 Wellesley Avenue. We're adding the following delegations: 1, Carrie Austin, and 2, Clive Marsh. Agenda item 12H, Development Permit Application number DP 1221-3945 Biggs Road. We're adding delegation from Tony Gill, IBI Architects. And agenda item 12I, Development Permit Application number DP 1198 for 361 Albert Street, adding a delegation from Payusha Sharma, and my apologies if I'm not pronouncing these names correctly. And then just one more addition, Your Worship, if you don't mind, I just want to take this opportunity to remind Council and staff when they are speaking and addressing the auditorium and those at home that they speak into their microphones clearly for audio purposes, so everyone has the opportunity to hear you clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gurry. Motion for approval of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Bonner. All those in favour? Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Bonner, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. I have a number of items on the Mayor's report. Firstly is the call for applications for our design advisory panel. 2 positions. The deadline has been extended. Anyone who's interested in participating in the design advisory panel, which I highly recommend because it has a great impact on the appearance of the buildings that get constructed in this city, is asked to submit their names. Interested residents must submit a completed application to Legislative Services by 4 p.m. on Thursday, August the 12th, by mail or by in hand. Legislative Services, 445 Wallace Street, Nanaimo, BC, V9R 5J6, or email legislative.servicesoffice@nanaimo.ca. Members may sit on 1 committee at a time and must be Nanaimo residents unless specified otherwise in the terms of reference. And obviously we're looking for folks who are familiar with urban design guidelines, design principles, and have the skills necessary to assist staff in establishing guidelines to ensure that the form and character of future developments is of high quality and meets the needs of the community. I'm also happy to announce that as a member of the BC Urban Mayors Caucus, 13 mayors across the province representing 55% of the population, we have received the endorsement of the BC Chamber of Commerce and local chambers of commerce from across British Columbia, endorsing our BC Urban Mayors Caucus plan for post-COVID recovery. The blueprint for that puts forward a vision for economic recovery that tackles many key issues with wide-reaching impact on the social and economic fabric of BC's urban centres, and includes the following large topics, which I am sure are of interest to people in Nanaimo. The first is to address mental health, substance use, and treatment. The second is affordable housing. The third is public transit. And the fourth is a new fiscal framework. I'm pleased to say that the government is listening and paying attention to what the urban mayors have to say as we try and move our communities out of the difficulties of COVID. We have received, happily, a new asset management software to streamline processes by way of a federal grant. We uses nearly $3 billion in infrastructure to deliver services to our community. The city manages and tracks its infrastructure through a process known as asset management. This includes our roads, water, sewer pipes, facilities, buildings, parks, trails, and many other assets owned by the community. The overall budget for the CAMS project is $2.8 million, with the funding of $1.8 million coming from the Union of BC Municipalities Community Works Fund. The system is expected to be fully implemented by 2025, so it's a very good news announcement for us. The other week, Chief Mike Wise of the Snuneymuxw First Nation, Gordon Edwards, Chief of Snowas First Nation, myself, called for peace. What we referenced in that release was the discovery of the unmarked graves associated with residential schools that had shaken many people to their core and caused tremendous pain and suffering to survivors who are constantly forced to relive their experiences at the residential schools. What we basically said, and I won't read the whole release, is simply this: as many have engaged in acts that are obviously criminal in nature, used divisive language and rhetoric, we are encouraging people to use nonviolent means to convey their disappointment and disagreement with Canada and the treatment of Indigenous people. And we conclude by simply saying we want all the people who call Nanaimo, Snuneymuxw, Snowas, and Vancouver Island home to feel safe, welcomed, loved, treated with equality, and allowed to thrive. All of this can be accomplished by remembering the basic foundations of being good neighbors and human beings, and that is to have mutual respect and truly acknowledge the importance of every citizen and their emotions. On a very happy note, the city's kicked off its 4-part summer music series, hosting 4 summer concert series to celebrate the season and connect audiences to some of Nanaimo's diverse musical talent. These are unticketed events. The first concert included a chamber folk pop artist, Elise Belanger, at the Kin Hut on Saturday, which I was happy to attend along with Councillor Bonner and others. It was also one of our pop-up tents for Reimagine Nanaimo. It was a wonderful event. I encourage all of you to attend the various concerts. Go to the city website, please, and the other 3 will be in August. And finally, on a very happy note and very good news for this city, I am very pleased to announce what many of you have already heard, and that is that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police has promoted Inspector Lisa Fletcher from Acting Detachment Commander to Superintendent of the Nanaimo Detachment. Lisa Fletcher is a native daughter of a beautiful Ladysmith, and this brings her full circle. She was first sworn into the RCMP at the Nanaimo Detachment in 1992, and as a result brings 29 years of experience and has served in 4 different detachments: Nanaimo, Surrey, Langley, and Chilliwack, working with the RCMP as well as working at national headquarters. We are delighted to welcome her, and on a note around gender, I just want to point something out to people in case they haven't noticed this city. The president of Vancouver Island University is a female Métis Canadian. The chair of the Nanaimo Port Authority, Donna Hayes, grew up here. Our MLA for the city of Nanaimo itself, Sheila Malcolmson, a minister of the Crown. We are happily represented on this council by 3 women, 2 of which are unfortunately absent tonight. The city has much to be proud of, and Lisa Fletcher provides, how shall I say, a bit of crowning glory to the achievement of women in this community. So whenever anyone starts to criticize this town and suggest that Nanaimo is, as someone once said, a coal town with a coal town mentality, things have changed a lot and improved much. And so very sincere congratulations to Lisa Fletcher on this appointment. That is my report. I am now happily in a position under the Rise and Report section of the agenda to announce tonight that the City of Nanaimo has purchased, on behalf of its good citizens, numbers 6, 10, and 14 Commercial Street, the property known to many of us old-timers as the Gene Burns site. Together with the purchase of Imprint and Black and Blue Tattoo, Council has taken bold steps to redevelop a key area of the city's downtown. I think most of us would acknowledge that the intersections of Commercial and Terminal are the core of this city, of the very heart. And the citizens of Nanaimo now own the property fronting on Terminal Avenue from Esplanade to Commercial. Over the coming months, citizens will have an opportunity to view and provide input to the design of this space. The current concept designs include, and not limited to, pedestrian improvements to Terminal Avenue from Esplanade to Commercial, attractive public space or plaza on the site of the former Gene Burns building, including this block of Commercial, potential to incorporate a transit hub between Terminal and Shaw Lane, development of the Albert Street cycle route to and through the downtown, potential to fix the challenging Albert Wallace Victoria Commercial intersection that we're all very familiar with, and finally, a coherent urban design plan for the Commercial Street corridor to enhance the street as a vibrant public space as approved at last week's Finance and Audit Committee. We all look forward on Council to seeing action on this highly important part of our beautiful downtown. And I take this opportunity finally tonight to encourage once again the good citizens of this community to participate in the Reimagine Nanaimo process. We have had a significant portion of the population participate and provide comments. This is an opportunity to help shape this city's future, to build on what has been achieved to date, and to enhance what we already have. So again, I encourage all of you to do so. Good news tonight, major step forward. One section of that intersection needs work, but we are hopeful that the private owners in due course will realize that it's a great time to make some changes in our downtown. Ms. Gurry, we have no presentations. Committee minutes are to be received only. We have a number of consent items under item 10. I would ask for a motion for adoption of the consent items. Moved, Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We now have delegations under item 11 unrelated to agenda items, and the first is Laura Augustine regarding potential rezoning of land surrounding Cable Bay Trail. Ms. Augustine, you're coming to us electronically tonight. Welcome. I'm sure it's been explained to you. Hopefully you can hear me and we'll be able to hear you. You will have 5 minutes. At the conclusion of 4 minutes, I will tell you that you have a minute left. Pardon me for rudely interrupting you then, and then if you can conclude by 5 minutes, that would be wonderful. So, can you hear me?
I can.
Good, and I think we can hear you. That's most important. All right, so please, if you can, please begin.
Absolutely. Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Laura Augustine, and I'm here on behalf of the Canadians Locally Improving Community Society. Next slide, please. As Reimagine Nanaimo is making big decisions for the future of the city, I wanted to bring into focus how those decisions affect our shared goals in addressing climate change, and to consider our RDN neighbors who live right beside some of these proposed changes in land use. Next, please. I'd like to draw your attention to the top right of this map, which came from the Reimagine Nanaimo Environment Committee meeting on July 14th. Please note the gray and the purple areas. The southern slice of Nanaimo is only accessible by traveling through the RDN, represented in this image as a white void. This area is unconsidered in these discussions, but it connects these Nanaimo lands and borders these changes. We shouldn't be making land use changes without considering the context of the area that connects the space to the rest of Nanaimo. Next, please. I've amended this map to reflect that broader context. Currently noted on the map simply as Electoral A, is largely residential, a mixture of neighborhoods and rural farms. The gray area is existing industry, and it includes Harmac and Duke Point industrial area. But the purple area is a forest, approximately 400 acres and currently zoned as resort lands. The black wavy line is the beloved nature trail and off-leash dog park, known as Cable Bay Trail, which is technically only a right-of-way. So as of today, it doesn't have all the protections of parkland. The white boxed area is within the RDN, and it represents 97 acres of recently logged land. The residents fought to keep it forested and lost. Now the residents smell industry on a regular basis, which, if plans go through as presented, would become far worse. Next, please. This is a Google Earth view of the area with the exact same black outline as the previous slide. And this is what the area really looks like. It's densely treed. If we're talking about being carbon neutral in a few short years, taking a stronger stance than the province itself against carbon, how can we propose to remove this vast forest? Next, please. This map suggests that as part of a climate plan, an approximate 200 acres of currently forested area is to become more industrial lands right beside existing neighborhoods, homes, and farms. Next, please. With record heat and forest fires across the province, this can't be our climate plan. Next, please. If we were to calculate the services this forest is already providing, assuming only 200 trees per acre and a conservative 500 pounds of carbon stored per year per tree, typical of a 80-year Douglas fir, the area around Cable Bay Trail stores over 2,000 tons of carbon annually. To meet our aggressive climate goals, we need to leave intact every feature that is already working in our favor and not replace carbon-producing forests with carbon-producing industry. Next, please. I encourage everyone to join the Save Cable Bay Trail Facebook group and review the petition that over 15,000 locals have already signed. We ask that these lands become a park and an extended trail network. Next, please. Without your help and support, all that's required is a 15-meter setback from the trail and the rest could be logged. If you are currently under the impression that this area is only second growth and not worth a second look, please allow us to show you what we see on July 28th. Next slide, please. We seek to work with the city and industry on behalf of the community. We believe that there is an answer to this challenging problem and that there are solutions that are kind to the environment, the neighborhood, and the needs of local economy. Please feel free to reach out, and the Click Society's goals really are to help. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Sorry, this is not a place where we clap or show any either approbation or disapprobation. Thank you very much, Ms. Augustine. You're under 4 minutes.
Wonderful, I did it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation tonight. I don't see any questions from council members. The next is a delegation from Jovan Stefani. A Rise Bridge project, operating a new nonprofit organization with the intent to advocate and serve for BIPOC programming and outreach services, to advise of the work you've been doing in the community and plans for moving forward. Good evening and welcome, and the same rules apply. 5 minutes, and at 4 minutes, I will let you know you have a minute left. And if you could introduce yourself for the record and your address, please. Thank you. Please proceed.
Good evening. For those that don't know me, again, my name is Jovan Stefani, and I am currently acting as the executive director of our new not-for-profit society, the Rise Bridge Collective. We are a very large team of like-minded professionals and peers that are acting to respond to the crisis need of collaborative social support programming and safe space options for our Black, Indigenous, people of color, and our LGBTQ+ community members. After our anti-racism car rally yesterday, which I will thank Mayor and some council members for attending with us as well, we were met in the park by a beautiful group of people that included Paul Manley and Dr. Lisa Gunderson to discuss all of our ideas about our cultural celebration programming and events we hope to see happen in community this year. As we all know, Nanaimo is such a beautiful place to live, but it is not a comfortable, supportive, or safe community for us all. We believe some of the big city problems we have been seeing over the past few years are contributed to the lack of funding, collaborative efforts, and accountability within organizations and programs that currently exist. We don't have a drop-in youth center in all of Nanaimo. We don't have an accessible space for community to gather, to connect, to share in culture, and celebrate diversity. And there is a desperate need for connection and collaborative efforts within this community. We are opening our doors on August 1st at 32 Nickel Street to act as a resource center in the short term. We hope to assist community in assessing and navigating programs that currently exist here and filling in as many of the gaps as our capacity allows.
This will include offering pre- and postnatal groups, youth programs, men and women's empowerment programming, cultural education nights, and trauma-informed support services. I'd like to add that our current team of 32 professionals are all offering the professional and peer services as volunteers, just driven with compassion and determination. Considering it takes a while for us to attain our charity status to move forward, we have currently been operating so far out of our personal bank accounts and community fundraisers to make this happen. Our group is reimagining Nanaimo that is an inclusive, supportive, and safe space for us all to live. Our intention is to work with as many community partners as possible to make this happen and exist under a framework that will forever support community collaboration and connection within Mid-Island. We would very much appreciate Council's assistance and support in recognizing the urgent need for Rise Bridge to exist and the 25 programs and services we will be offering as of next month. If you are looking to connect with us further or would like more information, all of us are always happy to chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're even faster than the last delegation. Councillor Gesselbrock and then Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Worship.
And Councillor Martin, I'm sorry, you were on and then you pulled yourself off.
Oh, didn't mean to.
You're back on. Go ahead, Councillor Gesselbrock.
Great. I just want to say a big thank you for all the initiative and putting this together and for putting together the anti-racism car rally on Sunday. And this collective that's been put together and the resource center that you're about to open is really exciting and something that we definitely really need in this community and super timely, and love the really integrated approach that you're going about doing it. And it looks like there's a lot of excitement and people behind this. So it's really, really exciting. And I'm just curious, what type of support are you looking for from the city at this moment?
And in gratitude, Tyler Brown was able to direct us to a grant that was underfunded by City Council, and we believe that that would be a really great opportunity just to be able to have some financial support and assistance right now. Of course, we're acting to just exist to support community in all of the ways that you just mentioned, Mayor, and allowing this to be a safe and supportive space for all community members. So we do feel like this is something that the city should adopt in supporting our programming and the professionals and the spaces that we all are collaboratively trying to work together, because we literally we're planning on standing as a collaborative team with all of the city organizations that currently exist, just to ensure that we have some type of short-term safety net until, of course, the programs and the initiatives that you're speaking of can trickle down through government.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the delegation, your reference to the youth center, drop-in youth center, what ages are usually are welcomed, I guess is the way to put it.
So usually what we see, youth can be anywhere from the ages of 11 to 30. And I think the idea behind us is wanting to be as accessible to community and low barrier as absolutely possible. I think anything at this point would be better than nothing, of course, but we'd like to be able to see more of a shared space that could offer for all ages and diversities alike, and being, an accessible space. Of course, because we are a big city with still small population, I think it would be, as more beneficial to be able to have a wider range of numbers for accessibility within our program.
Thank you.
Councillor Martman.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation, and I really welcome this. I was there at Black Lives Matter a year ago, or over a year ago, and the more we can do to make our city inclusive, or our country inclusive. I heard you say about Parksville, but I'm assuming you're intending, I didn't hear everything, but here in Nanaimo, what is the intent for the city of Nanaimo?
I will admit that I have recently moved to Parksville. My children had an opportunity to attend the French immersion school there, but I live and exist in Nanaimo, and I have for the last 15 years. I've gone to university at BIU, and my community and my professional capacity has all been within this city. And I just want to also recognize that Nina was the mastermind that pulled the Black Lives Matter together within a week, and that gave a lot of us, I think, the energy to still want to exist within the community, because for the first time we got to see over 1,000 Black community members that we've been very disconnected from in this community, and we're able to share in that. We all experience that same level of microaggressions within this community on a daily basis. And so the Black Lives Matter rally was really what helped conceptualize Rise Bridge and the need to be able to form this. Of course, we all know COVID has put a pause on a lot of our efforts, but coming outside of that, we're definitely ready to help transform this community to be a more supportive space.
Thank you. So being that this is your first presentation, and I don't know if you're aware, but council actually goes on holiday for August.
Yes.
So I would like to make a motion that we defer this delegation to the Committee for Accessibility and Inclusivity. And we will arrange, hopefully, if the motion passes, so that you can have a presentation and we can actually have a conversation of how we can build a difference in our community. I think a lot of it is around education, and I don't think a lot of people are really aware of the barriers and the racism that exists in our city, and we are more than welcome to do as much as we can to build a better society. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We appreciate that.
And I made a motion.
Councillor Martman, I'm going to ask, is there some reason the committee simply doesn't invite them
Yeah.
to come and speak?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to suggest that through you to Councillor Martman. So we don't need to defer the delegation. They're here this evening and you've heard them, but you are more than willing and able to, I'm sure, invite them to the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness to present there as well and see how we can collaboratively work with them. You as the committee, as well as them as the group, on collaboratively working together on initiatives of yeah.
If I may, we have all the contact information.
Yes, that is, we will send the invitation to them for the next committee, if that is what you would like.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We just want to add that our center is opening on the 1st, and we are going to be there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and hold space in this community. And everyone is welcome to come down and see what we're up to, especially on Wednesday nights when we're going to be hosting cultural education events in relationship with the Multicultural Center that currently exists here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Next item is reports, special events Nanaimo. Mr. Groot and Ms. Bevan and Ms. Dirksen. That's quite the triumvirate.
Might have to grab a clicker. Thanks, Your Worship and Council. So what we have in front of you is an information report that will be followed by a presentation. The purpose of the report is to provide an overview of outdoor events in City of Nanaimo parks and open spaces and outline how the City of Nanaimo facilitates the delivery of events with logistical support, funding opportunities, and infrastructure. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Michelle Dirksen, our Special Events Coordinator, and Julie Bevan, who's our Manager of Culture and Events.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bevan, you're going first.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Our purpose tonight is to provide some information on how the city currently facilitates the delivery of special events and festivals to contribute to the social, cultural, and economic vibrancy of our city, and provide a few notes on the outlook as we emerge from the pandemic. The report that you have outlines how the events function has evolved at the city with the creation of the events coordinator position, who works as a liaison between various city departments and externally with the diversity of nonprofits, individuals, business, and other agencies who realize the majority of community events, festivals, and tournaments in Nanaimo in our beautiful outdoor spaces. The city directly organizes and hosts in the range of 25 annual community events, which are funded by the city, at times with grants and contributions from sponsors. These vary in size, and examples are Winter Wonderland, Finale, Concerts in the Park, Canada Day, These events are organized by the team of recreation coordinators. And so for these, staff take on all aspects of event planning and management, from design and marketing and promotion to contracting entertainers and food vendors, technicians, equipment rentals, custodial, and so forth. And beyond these hosted events, the city supports a significant number of events and festivals in three main ways: with funding through grants through the Downtown Event Revitalization Fund, which is administered through Culture and Events, through venue and facility rental, and by providing timely logistical support, permitting, licensing, and so forth. This portfolio in particular is where our special events coordinator is most active and activating our role as a convener, connector, enabler, facilitator, and funder. Examples of well-loved large-scale events run by independent organizations with city support have included National Indigenous Peoples Day, the Commercial Street Night Market, Symphony by the Sea, the Nanaimo Dragon Boat Festival, among many others. And we've provided a big list attached to your report, which gives you a picture of the activity pre-pandemic. In terms of the lead time required to make festivals and events happen, whether it's being done by the city team or whether it's a community group, the event planning cycle is typically in the range from 6 to 12 months, often longer, particularly when groups are trying things for the first time or when they're securing grant funding either from the city or through other sponsorship. Now, what we're seeing coming out of the pandemic is that even though there's a great deal of enthusiasm and eagerness for things to open up right away and switch back on, there are factors that are going to contribute to a more gradual return to the kind of large-scale events and gatherings that we've enjoyed together in the past. So the lead time to plan is one factor, as well as issues related to organizational capacity and human resources on the part of community groups. Many nonprofits, as you know, have had a decrease in activity and revenues over the last year. Volunteer labor is another emerging issue. Events in Nanaimo are powered by volunteers, and getting people back into these roles, particularly seniors, who are a very large contingent, is going to take a bit of time. We've also heard about skilled labor shortage. For example, some people who are reliant on the gig economy have made career shifts out of necessity during the pandemic. Sound technicians are one example that we've heard about a lot in this area. So what we're looking at ahead is a period of opportunity and rebuilding in relation to events and festivals in Nanaimo. And we're going to be called on to continue to be creative and flexible and work collaboratively. Michelle Dirksen is going to share a few of the things that we have on the horizon. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Wow, Julie, thank you. Oops.
Ms. Dirksen.
I thought I'd be standing for this. I wasn't prepared to be sitting, so that's so fun. Thank you. We'd like to thank you very much, Julie, for introducing the topic so well. Events in Nanaimo, pre-pandemic numbers are what on the slide next, and I'm assuming this is the slide pointer. So Nanaimo had a robust events culture. We had a number of different residents who loved our parks and our event locations. In fact, Neck Point Park had approximately 27 weddings per year, and Bowen Park was just slightly above that at 29 weddings per year. So you can imagine everybody's jockeying to get their spots. And as we see, Parks, Recreation, and Culture is well positioned to have and has the capacity to hold events again once everything opens up. We anticipate that in 2022, as we've seen with our numbers of people calling and requesting our parks app and our special event forms, that people are dying, not literally, but they're dying to get into our parks and host their events again. And people are really itching to attend those events again. We're well positioned with our Soroxman Stadium upgrades, our NDSS turf fields, and we've also applied for the 2026 BC Summer Games. So as I said, there is an eagerness to get back to what we had as normal. We're actively supporting groups as we move through our reopening transitions. Some of the things that we won't see this year is the night market, but that's transitioned into some other things. The transition is into summer concert series, which I'm sure you've seen on the commercial drive. That's happening through the summertime. They're also planning to do a Remembrance Day celebration and a winter festival downtown with a Santa Fly-In, a Lions parade, a Santa's workshop, and they're exploring the ability to do an artisans market as well, and that's in December. And this is going to be really exciting. We're meeting with groups that are looking to do these things on a regular basis, and they're just itching to get out there. The OCQ is also doing some concerts starting in August and going all the way through into September. The Infringing Dance Festival has just completed, and they had a fabulous time. The Vancouver Island Symphony Orchestra is in our parks as well. I'm not sure if anybody knew about that, but we had an opportunity through this liaison work to work with Margot Holmes at the Vancouver Island Symphony and introduce her to the Bowen Amphitheater, and she's booked some spaces. It's fantastic. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to go down, but it was wonderful. I heard it from my office, and I made my way down. It was just fantastic. So currently, underway, there's a design charrette of Diana Krall Plaza. I'm not sure if we're coming to the completion of that in some time. And the aim with that design charrette is to identify possibilities and improvements for public use. Looking ahead, groups are planning for fun events again in 2022. Things that the city will be hosting again: Health Among Us, Family Fun Nights, and Terry Fox is a liaison that we do. Other community groups: Dragon Boat Festival, Marine Festival, many tournaments that are going to happen in the city. The City of Nanaimo funding streams are the Downtown Event Revitalization Fund and the Culture and Heritage Grant Fund. Again, the deadline is fast approaching. Not really. Please get your applications in. If you have any questions about those, give us a call. We'd love to have answered any questions that you might have. Events energize our community and contribute to community wellness. We are constantly adapting offerings and are building on feedback that we're hearing from last year's concerts and our reimagined sessions that we're doing. We're presenting a mini concert this year. Thank you very much, Mayor Krogh. And we had approximately 150 people down there, and that was fabulous. Our very first launch of our concert series, just in the grassy area by Kin Park. It was beautiful. We want to support our local musicians, and we want to gather outside safely. And I will spare you with the story of my one little lady who came up to me. Oh no, I won't. And she was just heartfelt because she's the first time she'd been in a social gathering and this whole time for a pandemic, and she was just absolutely thrilled to be there. So thank you for letting me share that story. We want to continue to work alongside our arts and culture community, like the Port Theatre, Nanaimo Museum, the Art Gallery, as they continue to navigate their reopening. Events and celebrations were enjoyed in many ways over the last few months, and this has created many opportunities for creativity. Our goal is to provide personalized and excellent customer service, promote and enhance advancement of City of Nanaimo's position as it relates to culture, sports, tourism, events, games, and festivals. As a city liaison, we work to encourage and identify, cultivate, solicit, and collaborate with the aim to see successes in major high-profile events, opportunities, which include local, provincial, national, and other events, local users, and many other user groups. Excuse me, I messed up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dirksen. Ms. Bevan, any questions from council, comments? Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, ladies, for your presentation. And I certainly have to state the obvious, how fortunate we are in this city to have the facilities, especially the outdoor facilities and venues that allow us to have events such as you're referencing. My question, I guess, to you, Ms. Dirksen, is have you heard from organizations to any large extent yet that want to reinstitute outdoor events that we've traditionally seen in the city? You referenced Terry Fox Run, for example. Are people starting to look ahead to the fall and rebook those things that didn't happen last year?
Thank you. Thank you for your question to Councillor Thorpe through Mayor. Nope, messed up, didn't I? Anyways, I apologize. Thank you for your question. We have been seeing a lot of people looking to book, but again, as Julie has mentioned, that it takes that much time to do those events, some of those larger events. So we will see some of our smaller events happen along in the fall, so through September through the winter. And then again in January, when those larger events, those higher profile ones start coming, that's when we'll see them start to book again.
Great. I think everybody is anxious to get out and associate with people and enjoy those type of community events. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and thank you so much. Really lovely events. This past weekend, I went to the first social gathering I've gone to in 18 months, and it was awesome. And I'm just wondering, as we move forward, do we anticipate a lot of appetite for more than we've done in the past? And can we do more than we've done in the past? You know, what do we have to do to make that happen? That's a rhetorical question that obviously we need to have a discussion with council, but I'm just curious, do we have that pent-up demand, or do we think there's going to be a lot of events?
It's a great question. Thank you very much for your question. We do see that there are people who are cautious in returning to their events, and we see people who are fully engaged in wanting the full magnitude of what has been out there. So I think that's a very tough question for us to gauge what's actually going to come in terms of people's appetites. I think if we do them in a safe and safe manner and open things up to the public in outdoor events initially, and then start working into those larger indoor events as things are allowed with the provincial health orders, that's going to be sort of one way that we can tell people that we're doing really well. We have lots of hand sanitizing regimes and cleaning regimes to help with that. I do see some folks really anticipating having more than what we've had, and I think that we will see some larger events than maybe we've had. There's some pent-up demand. I was asking a friend the other day, so would you go to a rock concert? Would you go to a hockey game? Yeah. So it really does depend on who you're asking and what their desires are. So, you have to still go over on the ferry to do those. You still, that we're talking about sort of a larger BC Place application for that question. But it's really quite up in the air as to what people are wanting. If we continue on the way that we are, opening up things and being safe, I think that we'll see a larger demand. But that's a guess sometimes, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through your staff. And may I have to say, you guys make some pretty fantastic presentations, and you might want to give some pointers to the engineering folks down there if you get a chance. I think Councillor Brown was kind of hinting towards it, but we have a number of grants that we give out for events, and we're about to enter our budget deliberations. Do you need more money to put on bigger events and more events and attract better event type acts, that sort of thing? I can't say we're just going to hand you a bunch of money, but I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of presentation as we can do this much with this, but with this we can do this much, sort of thing.
Thanks for that question. We're looking at that as part of a grants funding review that we're undertaking right now to gather some information from comparable municipalities and really undertake some analysis looking at the past 5 years to get a good picture of what we think we need to undertake in terms of funding, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of staff support, to continue to evolve and to grow and to be really ready to take advantage of those opportunities when they come along.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions. Mr. Groot, Ms. Bevan, Ms. Dirksen, thank you very much for your presentation. Love the enthusiasm and looking forward to, I know we're never going back to normal, but something where you'll be reporting on all of these events. Thank you. The next report is Off-Street Parking Reserve Fund Bylaw. Ms. Legan, good evening. Ms. Mercer?
Thank you.
Down to the mundane stuff of money, eh?
Yeah, switching gears. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mercer to speak to the proposed bylaw. Thank you.
Ms. Mercer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in our current reserve policy, there is a reserve fund titled Old City Neighborhood Off-Street Parking Reserve Fund. And this reserve was created in 1993 as a requirement under the Local Government Act. And so its purpose is for providing new and existing off-street parking spaces as outlined in the 1993 Nanaimo zoning bylaw number 4000. So we've had this reserve for many years, and we've collected cash in lieu payments based on the map that's in the Nanaimo zoning bylaw. So this year, while we were in the process of updating this reserve bylaw to include funding for local transportation improvements by the city that encourages non-automotive transportation, we discovered that a new bylaw is required to hold funds for this purpose. So the local government says you can establish a reserve for new and existing off-street parking spaces, and also for transportation infrastructure that supports non-automotive transportation. We can't have them in one, so now we're here giving you the new reserve that we need to fund this purpose. And the new off-street parking reserve fund bylaw, number 7328, has been created for this transportation infrastructure and for non-automotive transportation, and that's here for 3 readings tonight. So what we thought was going to be an easy update to a small bylaw turned into finding out we needed a new one. And also in the process, we realized that there was a zoning bylaw update in 2018 as well. And at that time, the cash and lieu map was updated, as well as the funds collected now would be used for transportation infrastructure that supports walking, bicycling, public transit, and other forms of transportation. So in essence, we changed our zoning bylaw, but we didn't update our parking bylaw. So we're here to correct that. And since 2018, we've collected 2 cash in lieu payments. And what we would do is, if council adopts this new bylaw, we would transfer $70,684.15 into the new reserve to fund those projects. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. I love reserves and talking about them, you know that. Fitzwilliam Street parking. Did we roll that reserve still exists? Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Bonner, I believe it still does. I'd have to look at that one. Yeah.
I'm looking at it now. I just wasn't sure if we rolled it in with the last group that we did. That one has $142,000-ish in it. The Old City Parking Reserve has $90,000 plus those 2 contributions. If we go down this road, and I'm fine with it because we want to create parking for all types of transportation, and we can't the way it's set up right now, we'll have 2 reserves that have approximately $230,000 in them that have not been used for years, and we don't have any plans to use it for years. And there's got to be a way that we can take that money and put it into a reserve that we can then start using instead of it just sitting there collecting dust.
So I'm one ahead of you on that one, because we're getting some legal advice on whether we can roll at least the Old City neighborhood parking into the new one we're creating today. So we'll add that one to the list, but we are seeking legal advice on how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that being the case, Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Then I will move first that Off-Street Parking Reserve Fund Bylaw 2021, number 7328, to establish a statutory reserve for cash in lieu payments received under Off-Street Parking Regulations Bylaw 2018, number 7266, pass first reading.
And seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Off-Street Parking Reserve Fund Bylaw 2021, number 7328, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll then move that Off-Street Parking Reserve Fund Bylaw 2021, number 7328, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item C, endorsement of draft articles of incorporation and shareholder agreement for the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation. I like the sounds of that one. Mr. Lindsay, and then you're passing it off to Mr. Corson.
That is correct, Your Worship. Move it over to Mr. Corson I'll let him get set up here, but to introduce the formal steps. The work that Council's been underway for a number of months now. So.
Thank you very much. Will there be slides?
Not tonight, Your Worship. I'm sorry. So thank you, Your Worship. So tonight we're seeking Council's direction to approve the draft Articles of Incorporation and the shareholder agreement for the External Economic Development Corporation that the city's been working on for a few years now. So just to provide a little bit of history for folks who might not be familiar with this file, the previous economic development function came back into the city in 2017. And when this council started off their mandate, one of the things they asked us to do was do an economic development function service review. And that was completed by Mr. Alan Nielsen, working with various stakeholders in the community. And he came back with a recommendation that economic development in Nanaimo would best be served with having an internal staff function within the city, as well as an external corporation. And council endorsed that recommendation. In 2020, council established the Economic Development Task Force, and that was led by Councillor Turley and Councillor Martman. And that task force had only two purposes. One was to create an economic development strategy, and the other was to flesh out what this external development agency could look like. In February of 2021, this year, council endorsed the economic development strategy and the what we call a charter, which spelled out more detail on what this corporation could look like. And in your attachments tonight, we have the draft charter as attachment A. So after council approved the charter in February of this year, we started working with the city's partners on developing what are called the Articles of Incorporation, which is the legal documents necessary to establish a corporation, as well as a shareholder agreement, which spells out more details on how this corporation would work. The Economic Development Corporation will be owned by the city, and the city will be the Class A shareholder. And then we'll have five Class B or C shareholders, which are our main partners in the community. So Sinamic First Nation, the Nanaimo Port Authority, Nanaimo Airport, Vancouver Island University, and the Chamber of Commerce. So those are the key partners around the table. And the city is a funder of kind of the base funding that we call it, which is like the operations and to keep the corporation going. And the partners are all contributing money into the corporation as well. And then each year they'll produce an annual work plan based on the economic development strategy and seek additional funding from council, grant opportunities, the respective boards, etc. The board for the corporation will have 9 members, so the city and its 5 partners, plus 3 additional directors. And 1 will be from the social services area. The other 2 will be members at large. The corporation itself will have a 3-year trial period, after which there will be a review done, and then the shareholders in the city can decide if they wish to continue. Because this is a corporation, the community charter under Section 185 requires the articles of incorporation to be reviewed by the inspector of municipalities, and I have talked to their staff. They've looked at the charter document that we produced, and they think we're on the right track, but they, if council were to approve these tonight, we'll forward these to the inspector for their final approval, see if there's any edits, and then we'll bring those back to our partners for their respective boards to approve, and then come back to council for your final sign-off. I'm happy to answer any specific questions council might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corson. Councillor Thorpe?
That's a hold.
You'll hold. Thank you. Councillor Turley?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Corson. With regard to lack of quorum under the Articles of Incorporation, specifically item 11.7, lack of quorum at succeeding meetings, it appears that Corporation A could be provided, could provide a proxy to, for example, Corporation B to be presented and voted on their behalf at the meeting, to make sure the meeting is at the intent of that?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Turley, that is the intent. Thank you.
Okay, and then if I could have a second one, Your Worship, please. I'm a little bit confused, and this may be typical corporation language. In my corporation, there was only 2 of us, so it wasn't an issue. The no motion proposed by, this is 11.14, no motion proposed at a meeting of shareholders need to be seconded. Is that kind of normal?
Yeah, so through your worship, Councillor Turley, yeah, this is the standard template for this, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thorpe?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move the 4 staff recommendations as shown on our screen and printed in our agenda. And if there's a seconder, I will speak briefly to it.
Thank you very much. Seconded, Councillor Martman. Councillor Thorpe, proceed,
Thank you,
please.
Your Worship. I'm really very pleased to move this and support it, and I appreciate the work staff have done in moving ahead to get this Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation founded. I think a healthy economy in our city, we all recognize, is crucial to being able to fund and support all of the good initiatives that we want to be able to do moving forward. And we have been missing this arm of the city since the Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation disbanded. So I think it's a great step forward and appreciate the staff efforts, and I'll be happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Martman, you wanted to speak?
Thank you. I just very quickly wanted to say thank you to all the staff that worked with us on the task force, and to all the members of the task force from our community that is working towards this economic prosperity. And a lot of work went into this. I'm looking forward to see success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martman. Councillor Turley?
Yes, just through you to everyone, I'd just like to echo Councillor Martman's, because the committee did a great job, and we coordinated it. Thank you.
And thank you for the work both of you did on this, and to staff. We've been very fortunate. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I also want to thank staff and all the participants that helped us get us to this point. One little thing in our 2020 State of Economy, the service sector, industry sector, accounted for 83% of the jobs in this town. And I understand that's where a significant amount of our growth is. None of the participants in the Economic Development Corporation are service industry, with maybe the exception of the Chamber of Commerce. And I was wondering, Do we see that as an issue going forward, or do you think that they're going to be working towards building this sector up more, or are we going to be developing new sectors and changing the way that works?
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Bonner, yeah, definitely the service sector is significant in the state of Nanaimo. In terms of the board structure, there would be an opportunity for a board member to come from that specific sector. The goal of the corporation is to follow the economic development strategy. That's one thing we want to emphasize with our partners, is that we worked with the community for a year to create a strategy. We've identified areas where we think, again, with listening to our shareholders, where they want us to focus. So that's where I would expect that the board will do that for those 3 years. And then I think I've spoken before to council, we'll be updating the economic development strategy. And then the board can see if there's other areas they want to pull in. But the focus that we came back with in the strategy was a lot of the area was around logistics and transportation, trying to find those areas where we have advantages. We did talk about the tech sector and the advantages with the Connected Coast initiative. A lot of the tourism file is being led by the separate, it's not part of ECDEV, it's a separate focus area. So I think that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Good. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think in fairness, the term service applies much more broadly in the economy than I think most of us think of it. Lawyers a service, doctors a service, everybody's a service nowadays. Hardly anybody actually makes anything anymore. The boys and girls at Harmac still make something, but for many of us, it is about delivering services. No further questions, no further comments. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is Official Community Plan Amendment OCP 100-456 Milton Street and OCP 101-120 Needham Street, 514 and 540 Halliburton Street, and 535 and 575 Nicholl Street. Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Holm tonight, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just briefly introduce this, as you have a couple of delegations, and we'll give our time to them. I'll give Mr. Holm a chance to speak later this evening, don't worry. Council will recall, I think it was in March of this year, where you actually put a policy, a moratorium in place on new official community plan applications during the time that we're developing and going through the Reimagine Nanaimo process. So this is pretty standard operating practice for a local government to put a moratorium on while you're developing a new OCP. We did say at that time that it is council's policy and that there may come applications that need council's consideration and direction during this time. And we think we have two applications before you this evening that meet that test. We have two potential applications that in staff's opinion are both substantially consistent with the existing official community plan, in our opinion, likely in keeping with any of the options that are currently being discussed. And as such, we think they're worthy of at least moving forward for consideration. So just to be clear tonight, if council approves this, it's just to allow the applications to proceed. If they proceed and they go through their normal technical review, they would come back to council in form of a report and ultimately a public hearing. So tonight is just giving us the opportunity to move forward. Having said that, I'll turn it over to turn it back to you, Your Worship, for the delegations, but certainly Mr. Holm and I are happy to answer any specific questions.
Thank you very much. The first delegation, and I hope I pronounced it correctly, is Myron Calouf or Calouf?
As such, we think they're worthy of at least
and
consideration.
Your Worship, just through you to the delegation, if you can hear us, if you can turn the live streaming that you have on of the meeting off so that we don't have the feedback, and then you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Having said that, I'll turn it over to back to Your Worship for the delegations, but certainly Mr. Holm and I are happy to answer any specific questions.
So you can hit pause on that live stream, or you can turn that off to stay on the Zoom call.
Oh, very good. Are we on?
Yes, you are, and we can hear you. And if I've mispronounced your name, forgive me. I don't know if you could hear me when I said it.
I didn't. Maybe it's just as well.
Myron Kaloff?
Myron Kaloff, actually.
Kaloff, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council. Yes, my name is Myron Kaloff, and my company, I4 Property Group, is the proponent of the development on Halliburton, Needham, and Nickel. And we are a Vancouver-based developer of multifamily and mixed-use projects in Metro Vancouver, Squamish, Edmonton, and in 2010, we developed Studio NA in downtown Nanaimo. We're currently in the planning and approval stages of a multifamily rental project of some 163 rental units at Campbell and Wallace in Nanaimo. I'm joined tonight by Donald Yen of Urban Solutions Architecture, Don and I are here to answer any questions. Our entire team, I think I should just say one more thing, and that is there's quite a large design team behind the project, even at this stage, and everyone is very excited to be working on the project. We're pleased to be one of the first projects in this part of the south end of Nanaimo. We think there will be many more after us, and we think it's a real opportunity not just for our company. We think it's a real opportunity for that community, and we think it's a real opportunity to provide another option for affordable housing in the community. As I said before, Don and I are here tonight. We're here to answer any questions. I think for now I'll just leave it at that. And as I say, we're here to answer, pleased to answer any questions that you might have about the development.
Thank you very much. I can assure you that the members of this council actually read their material, which is always useful and helpful. I'm looking around and I'm not seeing any questions. So appreciate it very much, your presentation tonight. Thank you. The next delegation is Carol and Rick Evans, Paradox Company, Inc. Nice to see you too. The usual applies, 5 minutes, and introduce yourselves and address. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Council, pardon my voice, Council members. So Carol and I are residents of Nanaimo, living at 331 Kennedy Street. Been there about little over 31 years. Come to know the downtown well, and are a big part of the downtown. And we're part of a company called Paradox Company, Inc., which is a family company with Carol and I, and Carol's son and his wife as the only shareholders in the company. And we're here supporting an application to rezone property at 456 Milton Street from 4 units to 7 units, all designed to be rental units, one of which we will be living in ourselves. And the intention is to try to create a certain neighborhood that is a very desirable one. It's called a pocket neighborhood that Carol will discuss more, and I'll try to pass it over to her now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Worship, Mayor Krogh and City Councilors, first of all, we'd like to say that we're not developers. We just happen to love the neighborhood that we're living in, and we would like to age in place. One of the reasons we've realized that a lot of people don't move is because they love their neighbors and they love their neighborhood. And we particularly have found a lovely spot to live, and we love the old city. We also have no pensions, and so our home, which is a large home on Kennedy Street, we would like to sell that and then put the money into rentals. Originally, we designed it as a fourplex around a pocket neighborhood, which the whole intention of the pocket neighborhood is that you keep the vehicles to the back and that all of the units face into each other so that you have a central courtyard that everyone shares. However, after we designed it, we found that it wasn't financially viable. It was too expensive. And some of the rents that we had to charge, we would actually already lost prospective tenants because they found it was too expensive. So what we have done is change it instead of 4 units, we now have 7 units, 3 of which have lower suites. But it has not increased the footprint. We still have the essential courtyard that everyone will live around. And one of the basic things that assisted us in this is that 2 of the units will actually be wheelchair accessible. Both my son and his wife are physicians, and they were determined that we should be able to get into our units if we were in a wheelchair. So it will be senior friendly, but it's not all wheelchair accessible. Some of it is. We've also lost 2 of the garages. Instead, we'll have only 2 garages. However, we do have sufficient parking for everyone, but we've got a large storage unit for bicycles. It's a very walkable neighborhood. You can walk downtown, you can walk to the university, and it's on a bus route. So what we're looking at is that people will use transit, cycling, and walking, essentially. Again, it's senior friendly, which all the units will have the bedroom on the main floor. So even the units that are 2 stories, you could live totally on 1 floor if that's the only way you could do it. Also, with more building or more unit sizes, we can also have more of a diversity of who lives in them. Originally, we were thinking that it would be all people like us. Oh gosh, I see I'm running out of time. Okay, I better maybe just read this.
You have a full minute plus.
We believe that by building this small pocket neighborhood in the midst of an older community, which was designed to accommodate the automobile, we can effect change in our city and meet the timeless and enduring needs for safety, sociability, and connection to nature. It's easy to talk about inclusion, diversity, and sustainability in community building, but the action is harder. To build a vibrant community requires time, effort, investment, in collaboration and partnership. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the City Planning Department, especially Lisa Brinkman and Dale Lindsay, who have provided this partnership. Their assistance has been invaluable as we consider the city to be integral members of our development team. This concludes our comments, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions from council. No questions for staff. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. That being the case, I will move that, first of all, Council direct staff to proceed with processing official community plan amendment application OCP 100 for 456 Milton Street.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A good evening for everybody.
Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll then move that Council direct staff to proceed with processing official community plan amendment application OCP 101 for 120 Needham, 514 and 540 Halliburton Street, 535 and 575 Nichols Street.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? Councillor Martman.
And just for the public and for clarification, in reading this, this is just to begin the process of the application. This will all come back before council, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
That is correct, Your Worship. And if I didn't state it earlier, part of that process would be the normal legislated public hearing process. So lots of opportunity for engagement with the community.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. The next is E, Development Variance Permit Application Number DVP 420-4176 Wellesley Avenue. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. And at this point, I will ask Mr. Holm to introduce this next item.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. This is a development variance permit that proposes a front yard setback variance from 4.5 to 2 meters. If you wouldn't mind, please bringing up the context map. That's attachment B to the report. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. So this is an application from Michael McKellican, and there's a bit of an echo. And again, it includes a variance request to reduce the front yard setback requirement. The variance is actually in relation to, it's a lot consolidation that's proposed here. There's two undersized parcels in the Long Lake area, actually fronting on Long Lake adjacent to the Loudon Walkway. And the parcels are quite undersized relative to the zoning bylaw requirement. You'll be able to see them here in just a sec, overhead, I think. They're quite undersized relative to the zoning bylaw parcel size, minimum parcel size requirements. And they're proposed to be consolidated into one larger parcel that is still undersized relative to the zoning bylaw requirements, but does provide a reasonable building envelope. There you can see the two parcels there in gray that will be consolidated, subject to approval of the proposed variance. So those parcels are also constrained by statutory right-of-way and riparian setback relative to Long Lake. And the front yard variance request from 4.5 to 2 meters improves the building envelope for the proposed consolidated parcel. And I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any. I believe there are delegations to speak to this matter. The application did include letters of support from a number of neighboring properties as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. I don't see any questions for you. We do have a delegation. Firstly, that's Carrie Austin. Ms. Austin, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Your Worship.
And you understand the drill? 5 minutes. When you've done 4 minutes, I will interrupt you. Forgive me. And
thank you,
if you haven't
Worship
finished.
and Council, for having me. My name is Carrie Austin, and I live directly across the street from the subject property at 4199 Wellesley Avenue. City staff has recommended that the variance permit be granted on the condition that the site is developed in accordance with the plan that's drawn up by Tyler Hansen. So I'm not here to oppose the variance, but I'm asking for a change to one of the details of that plan. I hope that you have the plan in front of you. I apologize, I don't have a copy here, but on the left-hand side of that plan, you'll see that it says gravel driveway to be decommissioned. So that's specifically why I'm here. A lot of the existing driveway is in the riparian leaf strip, and so I understand that part being decommissioned, but the upper portion of the driveway doesn't need to be, and is the best solution to provide safe access in and out of the proposed parking area, and to make it possible for the parking to be below grade, which would address our personal concerns. So I had some pictures that I asked to be uploaded. I'm not sure if they're there. I can't see them. Are they on your screens?
Yes, they're coming up.
Okay. Well, this is the second image here, but that's okay. That's the first image. There we go. So this first image is looking north down 101st Street towards Wellesley. So due to the changes in elevation here, it's actually challenging to see around the corner until you're in the intersection. The proposed driveway is right around the corner, and you can't see it from this view. But the gravel driveway begins at the end of the road. You can't really see it because the slope goes down here, but if you continued straight, that's where the gravel road is. So if you could go to the next image, please. So this second image is looking west along Wellesley Avenue towards the intersection with 101st Street, and the subject site is on the right, or part of it is on the right. If you look at the shoulder of the road, again, it's hard to see on the image, but there's an elevation drop of about 1 meter or more down to the proposed parking location. There's no sidewalk here on either side of Wellesley. And in the distance in this photo, you can see the gravel road. Apart from being used as a driveway, that road is used by the public to access the Loudon Walkway and Long Lake. I have a few more photos here, if you could go to the next one, please, of what a typical day in the warmer months looks like in terms of parking. So this gives you an idea of how busy it is and how people park. Often their cars on the wrong side of the road. And as you can see on the left, their cars actually parked in the intersection. Because of the slope of the shoulder, cars park mostly on the road, making the road very narrow. And as there's no sidewalk, everyone walks on the road. There's an assisted living facility 1 block away. So you have a mix of vehicles, some parked, some passing by. Elderly folks, some with walkers, some with motorized scooters, and many with pets. You've got kids on bikes and scooters, pedestrians, people carrying their floaties to go to the lake and pumping up their paddleboards. It's very busy, and this is all happening on the actual street. And despite being right next to a park, the speed limit here is 50 kilometers an hour, so people drive far too fast for the area. So this next picture is just another typical afternoon, cars parked in the wrong direction there, just to give you the idea, and how far they park into the road. So back to the site plan, because that's what I'm really here to talk about. What is proposed is that a new driveway now be added to this mix just shy of that intersection. Oh, we can leave there. It's sort of around where those gray cars are. Go back. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's nothing in the plan that shows how the drop-off will be overcome. So if the elevation for the driveway isn't raised up to the street level, nobody will be able to see oncoming traffic from either direction before sticking out onto the road, which would make it unsafe. So logically, it follows that the driveway must be raised up, and if that is the case, then it would dramatically impact our enjoyment of our property. So to give you some background, we purchased our home from the applicants, and before closing our deal, we talked about the applicants' plans to build on this lot, and we talked about our desire to preserve our views. So the result were some agreements, a few of them, where we had height limits set and some requirements like green roof, so as to maintain the perception of a natural landscape, and we agreed to their plans for development. So as long as these plans are maintained, we have no issue with their plans to build. But if the parking is going to be raised up to the street level, the natural landscape won't be preserved. So if the plan is approved with the road to be decommissioned—
1 minute.
Okay, thanks. Then Mike's hands will be tied, and he may have no other option than to put parking at the street level, which could cause an issue between us. We don't want that. So that last picture you saw was actually a photo of the previous tenant at Wellesley's Avenue's truck parked at the street level. And I meant to include another one of it parked below grade, but you'll just have to take my word from it. It goes from impeding the view to not having much of an impact at all. So please keep the parking options open. All of the concerns I've raised can be quite easily addressed by not decommissioning the upper portion of the existing gravel road. I'm just asking that the words gravel road to be decommissioned be removed from the upper part of the road. Excuse me. Alternately, in order to move this matter forward today, excuse me, I ask that you approve the application, but on the condition that the words gravel driveway to be decommissioned be removed from the top portion and perhaps replaced with gravel driveway within the riparian leaf strip to be decommissioned. Replaced, that would certainly help the relationship between neighbors remain good, which is important to me, but more importantly, it would allow for engineering to review and make it possible for safer access to the parking.
If you could wrap up, please.
Pardon me?
If you could wrap up, please. The 5 minutes is...
Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
That was
Very
it.
much. Yeah.
I'm almost dead on the nose. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions for the delegation, Council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Austin. The next delegation is from Clive Marsh. Do we have Mr. Marsh on the line? Mr. Marsh, good evening. If you know can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. You will have 5 minutes. At 4 minutes, I will tell you have a minute left. If you could introduce yourself, give us your address, and then you can start, please.
My name is Clive. I'm at 4177 Wellesley Avenue.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Okay. We have concerns with what's proposed across the street from a number of reasons, and I thank you for listening. As you know, a development variance permit is not a tool that should be lightly used. It should be granted when the request is reasonable and maintains the intent of the bylaw in question. We believe that this request is not reasonable and does not maintain the intent of the bylaw. And as you know, the use of enjoyment of the neighboring lands must also be taken into consideration. The setback requirements exist for a reason. Many hours of work and taxpayers' dollars went into establishing the bylaws. To break a bylaw simply so that someone can build a house where they never could have reasonably expected to build one in the first place does not seem like a good reason. When Mike bought his property, Lot 5 was not for sale. The vacant part of the property was too small to ever build anything. Now the owners are purchasing Lot 5, but only if a variance is granted. So that seems to be a huge conflict of interest for the city and not a reasonable reason for granting a variance. The staff report says that by putting the two lots together, they are making the lot more conforming, but that really isn't a thing. Either the lot conforms or it doesn't. And in this case, it's not even close. The minimum lot size required under the bylaw is 500 meters squared, and the proposed lot is 323.3 meters squared. So since Mike could never have had a reasonable expectation of building on the site, they're not being prejudiced in any way, and the request variance is not reasonable. It simply highlights a conflict of interest. The variance is also not in keeping with the intent of the bylaw. Setback requirements provide uniformly to the street. The new house would be set at least 2.5 meters closer to the street than any other house on the lake side of Wellesley Avenue. It would not conform at all. The variance requested isn't small. It is large, and the intent of the bylaw is being overlooked in order to facilitate the city profiting from the sale of a small parcel of land. The staff report says that the boulevard provides adequate separation. If you look at the boulevard, it is quite dangerous. There's a big drop-off down a slope. Last summer, a pickup truck got stuck on the steep drop-off and almost flipped over. If the boulevard is at large, the street should be widened so that cars can park and sidewalks should be put in. I still don't see why this is a reason to support a variance to the setback requirements, though. This ties into the concerns we have about parking. It's a very busy intersection and road. I don't want to even imagine backing out of the driveway that's proposed. Lastly, if the building is built, we would no longer be able to see the water from our home at all. We live in a one-story home that we rent, and part of the choosing to live where we do was the view. The staff report says that Mike has made efforts to mitigate potential impacts to neighbors. But what are those efforts? I know that he can only build a one-story house, but that's because of a separate business agreement with the neighbors, not because of any effort of the respect of the application. So what are the efforts he's making? Our view of the lake will be replaced with a roof and a driveway. The staff report also refers to a letter of support from neighbors. All of those neighbors are either buying or have bought similar pieces of land from the city. So this seems like another conflict to me.
1 minute.
They all have lakefront properties, and their views were not impacted. Instead of selling Lot 5 and a house going up, we and many other people would like to see a city put park benches there so that the public can enjoy the lake views and the elderly people in the community can have a place to sit down and rest. In just a few hours, I have gathered over 15 signatures to the effect of the residents in the community. I asked you to please consider the factors that I've pointed out today, that the variance is not reasonable, it's not in keeping with the intent of the bylaw, the parking is dangerous, and we would lose some of the enjoyment of our home. There are other options here. Please choose to not grant the variance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe?
I do have
sorry,
a question.
Councillor Martin.
I have a question for staff.
Oh, pardon me.
I have a question for staff.
Staff, okay.
If I may, through you. If I'm understanding the report correctly, the only variance is the 2.5 meters or 7.5 feet in the very tiny corner of the property. Am I correct on that? It's on page 172, if we had a photo come up, or a page come up.
Yeah, through your worship, I can speak to that. It's actually, the request is actually to reduce the required front yard setback from 4.5 meters to 2 meters. So for the entire frontage of the property on Wellesley Avenue. If you could pull, if you could pull up attachment D, I think it's clear. If you could pull that up for me overhead, I think that'll demonstrate.
I think the question was simply that, is that the only variance being sought?
That's correct. That is the only variance. But it's not just the a corner, it's the entire frontage.
Oh, it's that front piece. Okay.
Yeah, through your worship, that's, yeah, so the setback requirement fronting Wellesley Avenue would be 4.5 meters. Typically, the front yard setback, they're asking to reduce it to 2 meters.
And the difference being 7.5 feet if you think in feet.
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Martman. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Worship, through to staff. So the delegation made reference to minimum lot size being, I think he said 500. Yeah, and the proposed lot is in the 300 range. Is that correct, or is that?
Yeah, through your worship. So after consolidation, there's 2 lots that are undersized, substantially undersized now. After they're consolidated, the proposed lot would be 323 square meters, which is less than the minimum, the zoning bylaw minimum parcel size requirement, but it's larger than the 2 existing lots presently.
So does that mean there has to be another variance applied for that?
No, because it's a consolidation, it's more conforming than the existing situation.
Yeah.
So there isn't a variance required. The zoning bylaw has provisions for that. You're taking 2 non-conforming parcels, consolidating them. They're closer to conforming with the bylaw requirement, the minimum parcel size requirement. The minimum zoning bylaw parcel size requirement comes into effect when somebody's looking to subdivide. But in an existing situation, you can use the lot. You might have to have variances if it's an irregular or small lot, in which case they could seek hardship through Board of Variance if that's the case. In this case, they're looking to actually consolidate 2 smaller lots to create a more conforming parcel with improved building envelope, and then they're asking for a front yard setback variance to improve the building envelope and also to pull the building away from the lake, because they are constrained by the right-of-way and as well the setback requirement to Long Lake.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turley. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that Council issue development variance permit number DVP 420 for proposed Lot C, Lot 1, Block 7, Section 5, Wellington District, Plan 318, and Lot 5, Section 5, Wellington District, Plan EPP 82222, to be consolidated with the following variance to reduce the minimum required front yard setback from 4.5 meters to 2 meters for a proposed dwelling.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is F, property disposition 4176A Wellesley Avenue.
Your Worship, I
Sorry.
believe Councillor Bonner.
Oh, pardon me. Sorry, you didn't show up. Oh, opposed. Sorry, Councillor Bonner. Let the record show, Councillor Bonner was opposed. Now on to property disposition 4176A Wellesley Avenue. Mr. Lindsay?
Your Worship, I'll turn this one over to Mr. Corson to introduce this item.
Mr. Corson.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. So this file relates to the previous item on your agenda. And if you think back to the attachment D we just saw, the city owns a series of these parcels along Lake, which we've over the years been able to resolve all these encroachment issues. This is another one of these cleanup initiatives. So staff were able to get an appraisal done of the property and come to an agreement with the property owner. So we're looking for council's approval to dispose of the land to the property owner for $100,000, which will then be consolidated with the lot to enable the home to be built. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Thorpe?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move then that Council approve the property disposition of 4176A Wellesley Avenue for $100,000 to Michael McKillican and Michelle Peakman, and authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the purchase and sale agreement.
Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Martman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any contrary? Seeing none, motion carries. Yes, Councillor Gesselbrock. By all means, Councillor Gesselbrock, go ahead.
So part of that and related to the past development variance will be the removal of that driveway that's currently sort of in the middle of the public access piece, and that goes along the riparian strip.
If I could, through your worship, to Councillor Gesselbrock's question, so the actual access location will be determined through building permit application at the time of building permit application. It'll have to meet the access control standards, and there would be opportunity to access from sort of the same or similar location to the existing gravel driveway. It's not a condition of that's actually on city property, so the start of the gravel driveway. So it could be retained, the access possibly through building permit could be retained in that area once it's evaluated.
Oh, yeah, I was simply measuring that. I was initially opposed to the selling of Lot 5 because of access issues. I do support it if we can get the driveway removed from that's currently on the city property and that's going along the riparian leaf strip. So I did see that in the initial development variance, and that was sort of, it seemed like it was a condition of providing that, and so I hope that we follow through with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gesselbrock. The next is property disposition 4220A and 4200A Victoria Avenue.
Your Worship, this is a similar application, similar part of town, so we'll continue with Mr. Corson and let him introduce this item, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So this report is for two adjacent properties to the ones we've just been discussing. And there are two lots here with the city remnant parcels that are encroachment areas at the moment. We've been able to come to an agreement with the owner through the same process, through having an appraisal done. And we're seeking council's direction to dispose of these two parcels to be consolidated with the adjacent properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corson. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council approve the property disposition of 4220A and 4200A Victoria Avenue for $134,000 to Karen Perican, and authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the purchase and sale agreement.
We have a seconder in Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any contrary? None, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is H, development permit application number DP 1221-3945 Biggs Road, pardon me. Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And in this case, you have a delegation this evening from the applicant's architects team. So we'll allow the delegation to proceed, but following that, we don't want to duplicate any of the presentation this evening, so we'll let that application proceed, but certainly if there's any questions after that, Mr. Holm and I are happy to take those questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gill. Good evening. Can you hear me? Mr. Gill, can you hear me?
I can.
And we can hear you. So you know the drill. 5 minutes. At 4 minutes, I'll tell you you've got a minute left. So if you could introduce if you can just introduce yourself, your address for the record, and proceed then, please.
Yes, my name's Tony Gill. I'm the architect with IBI Group. We're located at 1285 West Penn Street in Vancouver. And I'm here representing the Nanaimo Correction Center redevelopment. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to present this to you. Just going to walk you through a little bit of what we're doing with the campus and It's a full revitalization of the site. One of the key things for us is to ensure that this is a great place for the residents. We'd like to call them the residents of this campus. And you'll see here from Briggs Road on the bottom right side of the map here is the main entry point to the campus. The campus is divided into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant on the upper right-hand side, you can see a fairly large building there. That building actually steps down the hillside. So one of the things that we've tried to do is work with the topography and ensure that the buildings, as they move towards the lake, that they're gradually stepping down towards the lake. The first building in the first quadrant on the right side is the actual administration building. That is where people enter the campus and leave the campus. There's also clinical services and other support services that happen in that building. As the building steps down the hillside, there's also residents in those units in that building itself. That is our main campus building. As you move along the central spine there, you can see there's a bit of a mews. Oh, back one, please. That goes down, and in the center, you'll see there's another facility there. That's the recreational center. So this building has been pushed significantly away from Briggs Road. And the other thing that we have also done is we've also moved the existing fence further in as well from Briggs Road. And we've also added a berm and additional landscaping along that edge as a buffer for screening. So the recreational center, which is in the center of the campus, faces out towards the lake. As it faces towards Briggs Road, it's only 1 story high, but when it faces the lake, it's 2 stories. The main playing field is that kind of kidney-shaped space in the middle. The second quadrant, where you can see that on the bottom, there's on the top of the page, there's 3 little buildings up there. Those are the residents, and those are their housing units. Again, creating smaller livable units for the residents so that they can better association with themselves and create some connection with each other. And that all those 3 units face out towards the lake. They're significantly lower than Briggs Road, probably about 4 stories down. Again, we're working with the contours, and there's a flat space right at that point where we put those 3 buildings. To the left of that is our third quadrant. There are 4 more smaller residents there. Those residents are also oriented and facing towards the lake. Also, again, in another flat area of the site. So we took advantage of the flat areas of the site to ensure that the housing faced off towards the lake, and also back from Briggs Road, they're quite well set down, so you wouldn't even notice them from that point. The other thing that we have done is in the center of the site, you can see there's a knoll of trees right in the center. We've worked with keeping and maintaining much of the landscaping in its current form and have worked around that. As a campus, we want to make sure the residents are able to connect back to nature, have the opportunity to learn, and have learning environments amongst and within the landscaping itself. As we come up to the fourth quadrant, which is on the bottom left side of the page, that's a horticultural area, and there we have an opportunities for horticultural activities and stuff to take place. Wrapping around the campus is a ring road. Also in the center of the campus, you can see there's an undulating road that kind of connects through, and there's walkways and pathways that lead throughout the campus. As you come back up onto Briggs Road, really from Briggs Road, there is a little bit of a visual towards the front main entrance, which is
1 minute left, Mr. Gill.
Oh, okay, which is the civic entrance. So let's go to the next slides. I'm going to skip the plans. Go to the next one. Next. Let's get to the elevations next, please. So this here on the top right is the main, the area that's quite brown is all natural wood. That's the main entrance to the facility. And then as it steps down the hill towards the north there, there's another entry point for staff and members at that point. This is the larger building that I was talking about. As you can see, it starts to step down the hillside. So it continues to step all the ways down. You can see there in the middle of there's a 4-story piece that sticks up a little bit higher, and the variance is for that height. That is the control center which overlooks the entire site. Now from Briggs Road, that is significantly set back, so the impact from Briggs Road is you won't even see it because it's so far stepped back.
If
Next,
you could
please.
wrap up, Mr. Gill, please.
Sure. Anyway, so with respect to this campus, we have broken down the masses. We have worked with the topography. We have set the buildings so that they are not visible from the streets, and that they take advantage of the lake and the views. And that's about it. I appreciate the opportunity, Mayor and Council, to present this.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council members? Seeing none. Councillor Thorpe? Oh, pardon me, Councillor Turley?
Mine's a question for staff, so do you want me to wait till the motions?
Go ahead, ask the question.
Okay. So with regard to the minimum watercourse setback, given it's a river or a stream and a lake, is there any seasonal variation as to what that level is? In other words, there are obviously no tidal action, but if heavy rainstorms, does the water level rise a significant amount, or during dry spell like we have, it would lower?
Yeah, I can attempt to answer that through your worship. Part of the reason that they are looking at raising, there's an existing perimeter road around the outer perimeter fence, and part of the reason they're looking at actually raising that is to deal with some seasonal flooding there. So there are sections of the existing perimeter road that experience seasonal flooding, and that's part of the reason that they're elevating it slightly. And as well, they'll be doing mitigation as recommended by their qualified environmental professional in those areas. So there'll be an improved condition from the current condition with respect to the watercourse setback.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Councillor Turley. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move then that Council issue development permit number DP 1221 at 3945 Biggs Road with the following variances: to increase the maximum allowable building height from 14.0 meters to 18.73 meters, and reduce the minimum required watercourse setback from Brannan Lake from 15.0 meters to 0 meters, and the Millstone River from 30.0 meters to 0 meters for proposed upgrades to the existing road, security fence, and utility infrastructure.
We have a seconder with Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Gill. The next is development permit application number DP 1198-361 Albert Street. And Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. In this case, you do have a delegation, but I understand that they are registered just to answer any questions that council may have. So as such, I'll ask Mr. Holm to introduce this application.
Mr. Holm, please.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship. And if you could please bring up the context map, that's attachment B to the report, I'd appreciate it. So the proposal is, it's an application from Douglas R. Johnson Architects, and on behalf of Gagon Sharman, and the proposal is a 5-story building on Albert Street, 361 Albert Street. It presents as 5 stories on Albert Street, but it presents as 4 stories on the rear of the property because it's quite a steeply sloping site, and the lower floor is partially encompasses some of the required parking for the site is partially buried within the slope, and then 5 stories. I think I turned myself off. The proposal includes, actually, if you could bring up the renderings on attachment F to the plan, that would be helpful too, or to the report. The proposal includes 22 residential units and 1 live-work studio that presents on the lower floor. The main entry to the building is well defined from Albert Street, and it's a contemporary design building with balconies provided to each unit. And they're asking for a height variance, partly to accommodate the grade of the site, and as well the underbuilding parking. The height variance request is from 11.2 meters to 14 meters. The building is sited towards Albert Street on the property, and it includes the upper floor, which is recessed. I'm not sure if you can make it out from the images there overhead, but the upper floor is actually recessed, so that minimizes any view impact from the height, as well as the smaller footprint of the building. It's a relatively small footprint, sited closer to Albert Street, and the rear sloping portion of the lot is retained and landscaped as proposed. Again, so 22 residential units, 21 are proposed as one bedroom, one as a 2-bedroom unit, and one live-work unit on Albert Street. So a nice addition, a nice infill project in the downtown, supported by the design panel as well. The variance was supported by the design panel with a few recommended changes that the applicant addressed and resubmitted. Happy to take any questions, but otherwise staff support the proposal, which is consistent with the city's design guidelines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. Questions for Mr. Holm, or do you want to hear from the delegation? Paisha Sharma?
So, Your Worship, I do not believe they are online. They were just going to answer any questions that you may have, but they are not on Zoom.
All right. Then Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. I quite like this building when I saw it, and it is mostly is the question how they're going to construct it. Is their plan to dig the lot out, build the parking, and then cover it up again with dirt, or tunnel underneath it? I would assume that they would dig it all out, build the parking, and then cover it up later.
I could try and answer that through Your Worship. So it's partial. So the parking is it's within the first floor of the building, which is partially excavated into the slope. So they'll backfill. They'll excavate out, and then they'll retain, and then the parking will be contained in that portion of the building. So cut into the slope basically, and then retained, and then they'll construct above that.
Yeah, great idea. Thanks.
And Councillor Brown.
Thanks, thanks, Your Worship, and always appreciate when the applicants try to respond to the design panel. As you can probably see, this is a pretty tricky site, so appreciate that. The one question I have for staff, and it is tied to the design, is artificial grass on the roof. Like, do we have anything in our bylaws or anything that says let's not do that?
Through Your Worship, we do not. It is a novel approach to, I guess, a design comment from the design panel, I think, to try and break up the roof massing. But yeah, we do not in our bylaws have anything that would restrict or preclude that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know what I will be including in my reimagined Nanaimo input box on. Thanks.
Councillor Thorpe, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move then that Council issue development permit number 1198 at 361 Albert Street with one variance to increase the maximum allowable building height from 11.2 meters to 14.0 meters.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is development permit application number DP 12106030 Linley Valley Drive. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll once again ask Mr. Holm to introduce this item.
And Mr. Holm, please.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. This is an exciting project, quite a large-scale proposal, rental proposal in the Longwood neighborhood. And if you could bring up the context map, that's attachment B to the report, I'd appreciate it. So it's in the Longwood neighborhood. It's in an area that's well served by transit. It's well served by commercial services, groceries, etc., healthcare services. It's also well served by recreational services, and it's in an area that's developing. It's near schools, and This property includes 3 buildings for a total of 151 units, so another significant rental addition to the city's housing stock. 3 buildings, it includes 2 with a 5-story presentation and 1 with a 4-story presentation. It's within the Core 3 zone, the Corridor 3, and it includes density bonusing provisions under Schedule D of the city's zoning bylaw. If you could bring up, please, renderings under Attachment E to the report, I'd appreciate it. So yeah, density bonusing provisions are taking advantage of some of the density bonusing provided in the city's zoning bylaw, including meeting the or exceeding the building code required step code by 2 steps. So it'll be quite an energy efficient building. They're also including 10% BC building code accessible units. And as well, I mentioned a commitment to rental housing, in this case, a 10-year commitment to rental housing. So 3 buildings totaling 152 units, a mix of 1, 2, and some 3-bedroom units, which is nice to see, especially in a rental like this. And again, it presents well. So it presents well on Lindley Valley Drive in an area that's developing nicely. It also backs onto Mollisey Creek, which is going to be a nice trail corridor, green corridor through as the properties around there develop out. They've proposed a variance from 14 meters to 16.2 meters for Building B, and from 14 meters to 16 meters for Building C. And that's largely to accommodate under the building parking, as well as to address some slope on the site. And this proposal was supported by the design panel, including the requested variance. There were some recommended changes that the applicant addressed based on design panel feedback. Staff support the proposal and the requested variance. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. Seeing no questions, Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that Council issue development permit number DP 1210 at 6030 Lindley Valley Drive, with variances to increase the maximum permitted building height of Building B from 14.0 meters to 16.2 meters, and Building C from 14.0 meters to 16.0 meters.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is the housing agreement, 1125 Seafield Crescent. Mr. Lindsay.
Your Worship, this property may be familiar to Council, as this Council approved a development permit for it in July of last year. At this point, the applicants are requesting, as they are eligible under our DCC bylaw, for a 50% reduction, subject to the registration of a housing agreement. They're asking for, and staff is recommending, that Council consider entering into a housing agreement to secure the affordable units in this project. Certainly happy to take any questions, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move then that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2021, number 7329, to secure unit affordability, pass first reading.
Seconded. Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Thorpe.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll move that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2021, number 7329, pass second reading.
Seconded. Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just out of curiosity, this was done a long time ago, as you just mentioned. Did the developer decide at a later date that they wanted to apply for a DCC reduction and then give the 30% things, or was that part of the original part we were dealing with?
To Your Worship, to Councillor Bonner, it was certainly part of their stated intention at the development permit stage. What happens is the development cost charges are not collected until building permit stage, so it's not until they're prepared to come forward for building permit that you'll see the applications for the housing agreement, but it was certainly contemplated, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2021, number 7329, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2021-2021, number 7329, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Markman. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Thorpe.
And Your Worship, I'll move that Council direct staff to register a covenant on the title of the land to reinforce the terms of the housing agreement.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Gurry, I note we are at 9 o'clock, but I'm looking at the rest of the agenda, and unless Council's anxious to take a few minutes to break and then come back, a short break of the absence of one council. Well, why don't we take 5 minutes then?
So, Your Worship, are we taking 5 minutes? Yes? Yes, okay.
This is the 2018 redux of the lighting at Nanaimo's historic bastion. I've had the pleasure of being part of the relighting project on this amazing building in downtown Nanaimo. So what we did is we've replaced the original high-pressure sodium lights, which basically did an okay job of lighting up the bottom 10 feet of the building, and replaced them with modern LED lighting that has the capacity to change color. We can run through a number of different colors that we have pre-programmed here in a pink, a purple, a green. Probably my favorite on here is Rainbow Chase for Pride Week. It'll actually run all the way around the building all the time.
With this new technology, organizations can now request that the bastion be lit to promote their cause by going to the City Nanaimo website and following the instructions. Go to Your Government, Bastion Lighting Requests, complete the lighting request form, and submit. You will hear from us within a couple days if your request has been approved, and the bastion will be lit in the colors that you have requested. If you have any questions, please contact the Mayor's office at 250-755-4400.
So the next time you're in downtown Nanaimo at night, come on and check out the new dynamic lighting at the Bastion.
Down here, okay? There we go.
Hey, Tiana.
Hey.
This sure is the coldest rink in town.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, buddy!
Nice save, James!
Wow, your goalie is keeping you guys in the game. Cheers.
Oh, man, that's hot.
Sorry, that's the way I like it. Oh. Go, 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 go! Penalty shot!
Scalds from hot drinks are a leading cause of hospitalization for children under 5.
2 minutes, down in the front, unsportsmanlike conduct.
Hot tea and coffee will cause serious burns to a child in less than a second.
Got a kid? Use the lid.
What we have here is the Real Ice technology that was installed at the Nanaimo Ice Center. It allows us to use cold water from traditionally hot water that we used to use for making ice. Basically, the water will come in through the bottom, go in through a vortex idea, making the air bubbles microscopic in size, which makes a better, more dense sheet of ice.
Differences that you'll see with the Real Ice is there's less snow developed, so that's easier for cleaning, and also it's a denser, harder, clear ice. So the ice skaters will certainly enjoy that. And the city plans to implement Real Ice at our other 2 arenas as well. Some of the other efficiencies we've implemented in this facility are LED lights in some areas, and we've also, in the last few years, installed a higher efficiency refrigeration system, which lowers our energy costs. Both Zambonis at our facility are now electrically operated, so there's no harmful emissions, and they're very quiet as well. So what this means for the city is that we're able to use less energy and also reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, which is more beneficial to the environment.
So this is the first one being brought forward in that list for amendment, and I just want to thank staff that have been working on this for quite some time, years actually, off the side of their desks and everything, and there was quite a bit of extensive collaboration with the bylaw department, the IT department, and my staff in the privacy and freedom of information section of my department, as well as myself. So this policy was put into place, a council policy in 2008, and in order to bring it into compliance with the legislation, updates are being proposed. So some of the highlights of those updates are that this policy will align with the City of Nanaimo privacy policy, as well as the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The updated policy requires that a PIA, which is a privacy impact assessment, is conducted for any new or changing video surveillance, as well as sign-off from the Chief Administrative Officer. And this reduces the number of, it also reduces the number of people authorized to access the data and updates the auditing, collection, compliance, and retention requirements that are required under law, either our records management policy and records management law or the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act law. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. Not seeing any. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Sorry, I've turned you on anyway.
Oh, yes.
Pardon the phrase.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I will move then that Council repeal Council Policy COU 178, Video Surveillance of Civic Property Policy, dated 2008, May 26, and replace it with COU 223, Video Surveillance of Civic Property Policy, as attached to the 2021 July 26 report by the Records Information and Privacy Coordinator.
And we have a seconder, Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any contrary? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is M, Council Resolutions Update. Ms. Gurry again, please.
I forgot I had another one. So this council resolutions update is for information only, and it is a repeat of what I brought to you in February of this year, 2021, but it's of new resolutions. In February, I brought you your council resolutions from the start of your term, starting in November of 2018, all the way up until the end of 2020. This report gives you your council resolutions from January 2021 until the July 5th council meeting that we had, as well as an update on the ones that were in progress or not started that I had reported to you last time. So if you have any questions on those resolutions, either the ones that are completed or outstanding, I can try to answer any of those, and or staff can be here to answer any of those questions that you might have as well. And just a caveat to that, we don't include bylaws for readings because those are in our bylaw status sheets, and we keep track of those other ways.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. I don't see any questions. On to item 13, bylaws. Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2019, number 4500.146. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move that Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2019, number 4500.146, to rezone 111 Terminal Avenue to allow cannabis retail store as a site-specific use within the Terminal Avenue DT4 zone be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is 13B, Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2021, number 4500.183. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Bonner, you?
I'm waiting for, I'm next in the queue, after he reads this.
All right.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move that Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2021, number 4500.183, to amend the Corridor 3, COR 3 zone to allow automobile sales, service, and rental as a site-specific use within 2355 Kenworth Road and a portion of 2345 Kenworth Road be adopted.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bonner? And Councillor Bonner, you wanted to...
Thank you, Your Worship. My question, I guess, to staff on this, and it's just me being curious at how the whole system works, is we voted on this, I think, around March 18th of this year, and it's 4 months later, it's coming back to us. I was just curious, I understand the cannabis one because they have to wait for their license, but why did this one take 4 months to get to us again?
Your Worship, and I don't know the specific answer, but it can be a variety of things. And really, once the bylaw is introduced to council and once it's received third reading, it's really in the applicant's hands. So if there are things like covenants that need to be registered, it could just be time in them getting the covenants prepared, reviewed by our solicitor, and registered at Land Title's office. But I'm guessing at this point about why that would be. But that's a common kind of scenario.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is 13C, Highway Closure and Dedication Removal Bylaw 2021, number 7286. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move that Highway Closure and Dedication Removal Bylaw 2021, number 7286, to provide for highway closure and dedication removal of a portion of 8th Street adjacent to 857 Old Victoria Road be adopted.
And we have a seconder, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And finally, D, Housing Agreement Bylaw 2021, number 7327. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2021, number 7327, to secure unit affordability be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next is notices of motion, and there's a notice of motion from Councillor Gesselbrock, re City of Nanaimo Fossil Fuel Divestment and Ethical Investment Strategy and Policy Development. I don't think it's necessary that it be read out, is it, Ms. Gurry? No, and we will debate this on the 28th of August.
The 30th.
30th,
August 30th,
pardon me.
yes.
Yes, you're right, 30th. Thank you very much. Is there any other business? None. Question period. Do we have some questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Manners, Mayor's report. I'm so excited I've generated a question. I'm beyond
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Bill Manners from Nanaimo. My question is regarding the Mayor's report, or the Ryzen report portion, because they kind of blended together. And it was regarding the purchase of the Gene Burns site along with the the other building. My question is, I know that this was done in camera, and when can we see a release of the minutes and information, especially on who voted and who did not vote, if that was applicable?
Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we do have a in-camera release policy, so those would be released as well as the vote when we do release those minutes. And as with most of those reports on property acquisitions, they are normally released in their entirety, except for often the purchase price is kept redacted.
Terrific, thank you very much.
And the next.
My second question was relating to the
Item 10B2. That was the funding
Yes.
request for Commercial Street Revitalization Plan.
It was in regards to the payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
We've heard that, I have heard that, I've noticed it in the writings of agenda items, that money is now coming out of the payment in lieu of taxes. Up until 2 years ago, payment in lieu of taxes was all put into the general funding. Has that changed? Do we have a new fund known as the payment in lieu of tax fund? Is it no longer put into general revenue?
I'm not sure what agenda item.
Your Worship, it's a consent item that Mr. Manners is speaking to. So it was from the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and it's regarding the motion that the Finance and Audit Committee made regarding this Commercial Street Revitalization Plan funded from payment in lieu of taxes.
Yes, and that's sorry, I'm sorry, I now understand. That's what I referred to it as the funding request for the Commercial Street Plan. You're asking about funded from payment in lieu of taxes.
Right. Yes, and Ms. Mercer isn't here, but Mr. Lindsay might, or Mr. Rudolph has something to add to that.
Mr. Rudolph.
I think the only staff person there at that meeting. So that was explained at the Finance and Audit meeting last week. It's a PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, is a funding envelope that's available for projects in and around the downtown. This the funding from this, the source is the Port Authority, NPA. And so this was a question that actually was presented to council from council last week, and the answer was it is a fund that's available for select projects in and around the downtown. This isn't the only fund that could have been used, but this is the one that was suggested by staff because it hadn't been tapped into for some time. So it's a PILT, or payment in lieu of taxes, and it's one that you won't hear that often.
Okay, I understand that part, but my question was, up until a couple of years ago, all of payment in lieu of taxes was put into general revenue. If you look at the civic report done each year, and if you look at the one from 2019, they were lumped together. Has this council changed that? So payment in lieu is now its own fund? That was my question.
Yeah, Your Worship, it may be the case because you may recall on March 11th, 2019, we did a refresh of our reserves policies. I remember that date only because it was a standing ovation for the finance department, as I recall, and because it was an epic meeting and it was large and it was significant. And there were a lot of details in that, and we could, I'm sure you could find that if you looked on our website, the reserves policy, and it would likely outline that.
Okay.
If not, we'll certainly be happy to follow up with you.
If you could get someone from the finance department to let me know, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Your next question relates to item 12C, which is the endorsement of the draft articles of incorporation and shareholder agreement for the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation.
Yes, during that discussion, Councillor Bonner mentioned about the service sector and how they would have a seat at the table with the Prosperity Corporation. And my question is, we have the service sector, but we also have a retail sector. And the retail sector is very well underrepresented in many places in this city, and I would like to see them represented. They do account for a majority of people that live in our city, including people that cannot afford affordable rentals. And they need to be represented, and I believe that with the prosperity of our city, we should have them sitting at the table. They are a very important part of our community, and I'd like to know what council thinks about that.
I think it's a very reasonable question to ask in terms of the retail sector, but depending on what you're looking at in terms of the report, Councillor Bonner quoted the report indicating 83% were in the service sector, and I suspect that might include the concept of retail
Yes.
in and of itself. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think it's really more a question about the actual bodies who are going to be on the board. Do they come out of the retail sector, part of the larger service sector? And it's a point well taken.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before I ask for an adjournment, I have a small apology to make, or a large one to a friend of mine. When I was happily talking about the selection of Lisa Fletcher, I forgot to mention one other leading person in our community, and it was pure mental lapse on my part, the chair of the school board, Charlene McKay, also a female. So the list is complete. Now I want a motion for adjournment. Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.